If right now this is the cog in your wheel, and you know that you've identified all of the ways that this is a problem area, you have identified and dissected the problem and how it's affecting you and your family, you can even problem solve the ways that you can remediate it, and you've identified what it is you need in order to build out the plan to execute it, but you're just not. Now you have to have that hard conversation of why. And sometimes that why is a matter of, I would rather watch a TV show than fix that problem. Okay, great. It must not be problematic enough for you to do anything about it yet. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. If you would rather go to the park with your kiddos or relax after a long day or keep scrolling Pinterest and this is no shade on any of those things. If you would rather do that than address the problem, that is absolutely okay. When it becomes problematic enough, that is when action will happen. We grew up with the phrase, home is where the heart is. But our culture has shifted, and now the message is, home should be Pinterest perfect. I'm calling BS on that message. Home, it's not about the stuff, it's about the story. And whether you know it or not, your home is a reflection of you and is already saying something. So what is it that you want it to say? Hey, I'm Danny, a former first grade teacher turned home decorator. Going from a dual income to a single income so I could stay home with my babies meant budget, like ramen eating, Goodwill shopping budget. And I learned a few things along the way, like how to bring big style to your home without breaking the bank. And I'm sharing it all with you. Tips, tricks, decor, and design advice so you can learn to tell your story with your style. Where you can start living free from the Pinterest perfect trap and start living a life of intention. Welcome to Fig and Farm at Home, where we design happy living and where it doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. As I have been simultaneously preparing for this busy grad season in my family, remodeling a bathroom, and sorting through the last 10 months of paperwork that the schools tend to send home in the last few days of school, I realized life has not been as organized as it could be. And generally speaking, I have been categorized as an organized person, balancing a lot of different things on my plate, sometimes letting them fall here and there, but balancing them and balancing them well. In fact, Mr. Fig and Farm used to joke with me that I always had a place for everything and everything for a place. I would dream about organizing. And these were not nightmares. These were fun dreams. I would wake up and I would tell Mr. Fig and Farm, hey, I had this dream that our whole family was going on vacation and there were so many people and only so many rooms and beds. And so I was organizing the space within my room, within my dream, in order to make it work so we could all be comfortable. That is how my brain works. But this season has been a little bit busier than normal, and things are falling through the cracks a little bit more than normal. And it got me thinking about all of you and the idea of not just wanting a pretty home, but wanting to have a home that feels a little bit more maintained and well run so that it can be and I don't want to say an organized machine. That's not what we're not living in machines, but a place that is not just decluttered and not just beautiful, but organized too. And so today we're bringing it back there. Now, I can tell you all the tips for how to organize your pantry or how to organize your junk drawer or how to organize your office, or I need to take my own advice there, or how to, whatever, your garage. We can go there, but instead, I want to go a little bit deeper, and we're talking about how to recognize a problem area in your home and build out from there, because sometimes it is not a matter of just putting a pretty basket in the corner or finding a pretty box at the Container Store. Sometimes it is a matter of recognizing a broken system and fixing it. So I'm walking you through the 5 things I would do to recognize if I had an organizing problem and how I would go about remediating it, fixing it, and making it run smoothly for my home. So tip number 1 is to identify your high traffic zones. Usually your high traffic zones in your family or in your home are the things that are most problematic. These are the places that cause the pileups. These are the places that are keeping you from functioning as you should or as you would like to in your day-to-day. Things that immediately come to mind are kitchen countertops. Right? How many of you have piles of paper on a kitchen counter that need to be gone through in order to then have your breakfast in the morning? Or hallways inside of the entryway that are littered with shoes or backpacks or coats, or they become drop zones for when people come over, but it literally drop zones. There's nothing for it places to land. I can think of rooms outside of the garage. Maybe it's a mud room, maybe it's a laundry area, maybe it's a pass-through that just become pile-ups, and there's no real rhyme or reason for this place, but it's where people come in from the garage and we drop our things, our sports equipment, and then we move on to our day because we're starving and we need to get the snack. These high traffic zones are the cogs in your wheel, and really coming to terms with what those are is the first step. And as I walk through the things, that 5 steps of not only identifying but then remediating these, I'm going to walk you through one of my cogs in the wheel from a few years ago, and that was my laundry room. And you're going to see the side-by-side example of how I identified the problem and then how I remediated it with these steps. But a few years ago, I recognized that my laundry room was a huge cog in my wheel. It was a typical laundry room. It housed all the laundry supplies, of course, and I had one of those roll-in 3-compartment containers that housed the dirty laundry. I had my ironing board hung on the wall because I thought, yes, let's go higher. That's what we should do in order to get things off the floor. We're going to make it, quote, organized. But what would happen would be I would take my dirty laundry, I would do the clothes, I would bring them out, I would put them in a basket, and they would be ready to go to the kiddos' room. I would fold them, put them away, you name it, the things would happen. But every once in a while, I got a little behind. And when I got a little behind, sometimes the clothes didn't come out of the dryer and into the basket to be delivered. And here's where the problem started. Because what would happen would be the kids would come home from sports, and this is when they were a little bit younger. Well, okay, who am I kidding? They are still doing some of this stuff. The kids would come home from sports, they would put their dirty clothes or their wet clothes on the floor of the laundry room because that was a safe surface for them to be on so that it wouldn't mold or it wouldn't ruin the carpet. But they would put their wet clothes on the floor in order to kind of dry out a little bit before I got them into the laundry. But if I wasn't fast enough taking out the clean clothes from the dryer, you're going to see where this is going. If I wasn't fast enough taking out the clean clothes from the dryer in order to put them in their baskets to take them to the rooms, my sweet kiddos would open up the dryer because they needed something to wear, and they would take out the clothing that they wanted. And as much as they are very attentive, they would grab the thing that they wanted, not realize that 15 things, maybe 20 or 30, fell onto the floor, the pile of dirty clothes that needed to be laundered, and go about their merry day. Well, wouldn't you know, now I have clean clothes mixed with dirty clothes, and that was a broken system, and it drove me absolutely bonkers, and it needed to be fixed. So identifying the problem is the first step. What is your problem area in your home? Is it that the pantry is overflowing with stuff and you buy more things because you didn't realize that you actually had the thing? You couldn't find it, or it wasn't in an accessible way, an accessible area. Same with your spices. That is a high traffic area in our home because we cook so much, but something that can get a little bit disorganized if we allow it to. So think about and identify your high traffic zone or your problem area. What is the cog in the wheel that is making your day a little harder than it should be? Okay, step 2 is to dissect the problem. Now, identifying the problem is fine. Yep, there's the problem. There we go. And now I'm going to go and have my coffee and I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to ignore it. That is one approach. But the other approach is to now really think about what that problem is and why it is a problem. Now, we're not talking yet about what we're going to do about it. We are just really identifying the problem. What is the problem? Is it that the shoes just keep piling up by the front door, or the backpacks somehow don't find their way to the landing zone? They create their own and they are spilling out into the dining area. Is it that the papers are piling up on the countertop every time you bring them home from the mailbox, or your kiddos bring home a project and this is now the solution? They go onto the counter until you have a little bit of time to organize it. Is it that the problem is that you are constantly losing field trip permission slips, or you're constantly rebuying the thing that you thought that you had because you thought that you had it, but you can't find it? Coming to terms with the problem and really sitting with it for a second is going to be helpful for you before we create a plan for how to do anything about it. So going back to my laundry room, my problem wasn't doing the laundry. I did the laundry just fine. I was up to date, up to speed, and if you heard me in the last so many years, you know that I have to do 3 loads of laundry a day to stay on top of it. But the problem was not doing the laundry. The problem was not folding the laundry fast enough, not getting the clean laundry out of the way quick enough so that then it wouldn't now become mixed back into the shuffle of the dirty laundry that was laying on the floor. So part of the problem was we live in a very wet area. We have practices in the rain, and my kids have all chosen sports that require being outside and being frozen if you are a bystander on the sideline watching. Yes, yes, that is me. I have upped my soccer watching gear in order to be more comfortable throughout the years. I have learned a very good lesson. But there are no gym sports for us. It means that we come home with really wet shoes and clothes and all the things after practice. The problem was we didn't have a spot for those to land in order to dry so that they wouldn't mingle with the things that might be coming out onto the floor if they were clean. Now, you might also think that the problem was the kids not being trained well enough to pull their clean clothes out of the dryer if they happen to be in the dryer stage and then put anything back in the dryer. Yes, that was a problem too, but I was working around the realistic handicaps in my area. Yes, I was training and teaching my boys to be observant, but that was something that I was just going to assume was going to continue to be problematic. That they might not be as observant as I would want them to be because I'm like 1,000 years older than them and have a little bit more experience in doing the laundry, right? They just need the clean shorts. So the problem wasn't them necessarily, though I did address that. The problem really was we needed a place for clean clothes to go in the interim before they could get to their rooms. We needed a place in a system or something that was going to help us really get those clothes folded in a quick time because I could wash it like the best of us. Now hiring someone to do it for me, that wasn't an option, which leads me to step number 3, which is like, what are you going to do about the problem? How do you problem solve the idea that is feasible for your family? And so for me in this laundry room, hiring someone to do it for me was not a realistic option. And so as you are identifying the solution to your problem, I want you to be thinking about how you can make that area, whatever that problem zone is for you, that landing zone, that drop zone, that really high sticky point, I want you to be thinking about how it can work for you a little bit more than you are working for it. So let's take, for example, the pantry, the overflowing pantry that seems always to be full, but you can't really ever find the things in the back of the pantry. You end up rebuying the pineapple juice, even though you had it and you needed it for that one time, but you end up buying it again. Because seriously, we know that we have chips, right? We know that we have pretzels. We know that we have the good stuff. Because it gets recycled and gone through really quickly. But sometimes the obscure things in the case of the pantry are the things that we don't really know that we have because we bought it one time ago, but we're going to store it in a way that we can use it again, but it's just not there, we don't think, when we need it next, but actually it is. And so we buy again and we have more than we need. So in this case, we're going to problem solve some ways for us to remediate that. How do we solve the issue of buying more than we actually need because we just don't know what we have in the first place? Do we need more storage? Do we need to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff? Do we need to bomb the whole place? What do we need to do in order to remediate that problem? And yes, you're going to hear me say decluttering is often the first step of organizing. Decluttering is often the first step of addressing these high traffic areas or these problematic zones. Decluttering is the first step. If you need help with that, I've just done a few episodes on decluttering just this spring. Go back and listen to those. I'll link those in the show notes. Sometimes buying the storage solution is not always the solution that is necessary. Sometimes it is. And in the case of the pantry, it likely could be. After you've gone through everything, you've removed all the things that are now expired because you didn't know you have them, and go through and now organize it in such a way that you can see it. Sometimes that requires the storage solutions, but sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it requires hanging things a little higher, elevating things, using the height in order to elevate things so that you can see them just a little bit better. Like in the case of the pantry, I'm immediately picturing pantry risers or shelves that are not on the wires so that you can have a flat surface in order to have stackers and risers in your pantry so you can see the things that you currently have, or bins so that you can know that this bin is for my baking goods, this bin is for my dried fruit, this bin is for my smoothies because I make them every single day. And so that you have a little space, and let that space, that little bin, be the thing that it doesn't have to be picture perfect or alphabetized, or it doesn't have to necessarily be a spot that is so tidy it can be on Instagram, but what it can be is something that is just containing the supplies that you need that you wouldn't necessarily find otherwise. Having zones is helpful. Utilizing height is helpful, and decluttering is all going to be helpful here. Going back to my laundry room, how could I make it work smarter for me? Well, honestly, I realized I did not need a place to store dirty laundry. That little 3 hamper cart was not serving me in a way I needed it to. The problem wasn't storing dirty laundry or doing the laundry. The problem was what was happening out of the dryer. And I didn't have a solution for that yet. But what I realized was, as I was identifying the problem and wanting to know how this laundry room could work a little bit better for me, I realized a couple other things. I realized that my shelves were too high. You know, those wire shelves that come in builder grade homes that are like 15 feet high above the laundry machine? Why? No one is 15 feet tall. And I'm exaggerating, yes, but they're too high to store the laundry detergent that you need in order to do the laundry. That became a problematic too. So I needed to, in this case, bring things down and make a space for me to store clean clothes. Now, this was not going to become a closet, but it was going to be a place for me to put clean clothes after they came out of the dryer so that they wouldn't land and intermingle with the wet things on the ground anymore. I also needed a place for wet things to be hung until they had a chance to be put into the laundry. Because I don't know about you, but have you ever had a pile of wet clothes in a laundry basket and then you realize, oh no, I didn't get to it fast enough and it has molded the laundry basket or molded the clothes themselves, and it's a huge mess, and that I wanted to avoid. So brainstorming ideas that worked for me, Pinterest could only go so far. Pinterest did not have a solution that I needed. But as I was thinking, I need a place for these clean clothes to land. What would make it most ideal? Well, it would make it most ideal if I had a spot for every person in our home to have a clean place, a place for their laundry to land. That would be most ideal. And there are 5 of us in the family. And I started thinking about building a tower. And a tower that would have 5 shelves, and that tower would hold not only the laundry supplies that are a little bit more accessible, but not necessarily needed as often. So things like spray and wash or shout or whatever those things are, mop cleaners, irons, things like that. So it was deep enough, but then in front could be the laundry basket that would hold the clean clothes for everyone as it came out of the dryer. And then we would grab our clean clothes basket, ideally fold them before shoving them into the drawer, and then return the clean basket for the next load. That felt like a beautiful system for me, a beautiful plan, which leads me to step number 4, which is identifying what you have in order to address the problem area. Now that you know what the problem is and you know how you want how you want to remediate it by allowing your space to work harder for you than you for it, what do you currently have in your space in order to build out that plan? Or what do you need in order to build out that plan? Do you have the skill set in order to hang the hooks? Do you have the skill set in order to build the thing if you need to build a thing? Do you just need to run to the dollar store to get the containers? What do you need? In my case, it needed a skill set. And as you're organizing your home, you are likely not going to be building out things in order to make it run more efficiently for you. This was an extreme measure because it was an extreme problem, and I happen to have a handy husband. So this was something that I was able to remediate based on the plan I had. But for you, it might just be, I need to really start from scratch. Okay, I can do that. I might need time in order to reorganize that pantry that is overflowing. I might need time that the kiddos are not around in order for me to address that situation. That is the thing that I actually need. I have the boxes. I have the organizing boxes. I have these boxes that come from Amazon every single day, and I can cut them down and I can cover them with a pretty scrap paper so they're not boxed, or I can paint them. And look what I have. I have these organizing containers that are going to make it easier for me to put things back in. And the fifth thing is to make that plan and then execute. So as you're creating the plan and you're addressing what it is you have that you can bring to the table in order to make that space work harder for you than you are for it, making the plan and executing, this is oftentimes where we get our own cog in the wheel, where we get in our own way and we decide, I don't either have enough time, or I don't have enough desire, or the problem isn't probleming enough for me to do anything about it. So my thought here for you is to really evaluate then, how problematic is it? So we're really going back to number one. If right now this is the cog in your wheel, and you know that you've identified all of the ways that this is a problem area, you have identified and dissected the problem and how it's affecting you and your family, you can even problem solve the ways that you can remediate it, and you've identified what it is you need in order to build out the plan to execute it, but you're just not. Now you have to have that hard conversation of why. And sometimes that why is a matter of, I would rather watch a TV show than fix that problem. Okay, great. You have solved your own problem here. It must not be problematic enough for you to do anything about it yet. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. If you would rather go to the park with your kiddos, or relax after a long day, or keep scrolling Pinterest, and this is no shade on any of those things. If you would rather do that than address the problem, that is absolutely okay. When it becomes problematic enough, that is when action will happen. But when you're ready for action and you've already built out the plan, now it's sprint mode. Now it is time to execute, and now it is time for you to be creative with how to make that happen so you can get back to those things that you really wanted to do. So you can get back to that, I want to just relax in the evening. I want to make sure that the only thing I want to do in summer evenings is go play at the park or play at the pool with my kids. So that you can continue scrolling Pinterest if that is how you decompress and unwind at the end of the day. So that you can get back to all of those things that you absolutely love, but we need to address the problem. And so when you're in sprint mode, let's be creative here. And so here are a couple tips for you to be creative so that you can carve out that time and just be really intentional with it. And number one is, seriously, make easy meals, have leftovers, have a kid cook, trade with a friend. Meaning, if you have a buddy who lives down the street and you can say, hey, can I make you meals next week if you make me meals this week? Have you ever done that, by the way? One of my best friends and I used to do that, and it was such a fun, when the kids were little, it was such a fun little thing, because I knew that she had a busy season and I had a busy season the following, and we would just help each other out that way. The same thing with kiddo care. Hey, I know that you have this project coming up that you need to work on. I will watch your kids next week if you can watch my kids this week. Be creative here and get into that sprint mode. And sometimes that requires putting on a book on tape, or a podcast series, or maybe you just like to jam out to music. So having a distraction-free zone so you can be distracted with whatever entertainment you have, or so that you can dedicate that couple hours of time in order to get that project done, you're going to feel so incredibly accomplished. Now, in the case of my laundry room, it was more than just, yes, we sprinted, but it was more of a weekend extending into the week project because it required a build. And then it was a little bit longer for me because I chose, instead of wallpapering that room, I chose to stencil it with a really cute stencil that mimicked a wallpaper that I wanted that was just really too expensive. It required the build of the tower by Mr. Fig and Farm, the painting of the tower because I wanted it to be a color scheme in there, and then I chose to continue to beautify the room as I was going, because why not? I was changing the landscape of the room. And so for me, it required a little bit more, but it doesn't for you. If your project is literally, this problem area is my junk drawer, it requires maybe an hour. If your problem area is that landing zone in the front hallway, maybe it requires 3 hours to figure it out. Or the pantry that is overflowing, maybe it just requires 2 hours. And the last tip I have for when you are in sprint mode in order to motivate you to get the project done is to gamify it, or to put a carrot at the end of the completed project. Now, usually I am not a proponent of saying that carrot should be a stuff thing, because we are living in a world with too much stuff. So usually for me, it is not a treat like stuff. It is more a treat like an experience. It is you know what? I never get my nails done, but heaven to Betsy, I want to make sure that I get this thing completed. And when I get that thing completed, I'm going to treat myself to getting my nails done. Incentivizing a project like that can be all of the motivation that you need in order to get it done and get it over with, so that you can get back to doing all of the things that you absolutely love doing. And the last tip I have for really motivating you to get into sprint mode so that you can get out of it and back to living is to bring in a buddy, to tell someone about the project you're working on so that you can have some accountability. That's one way. But the other way is to literally bring them in. That friend that you shared the meals with, or you shared the childcare with, bring them over. Allow it to be an experience that you guys can work with together. Enjoy each other's company while you are going through and reorganizing the pantry. Get another opinion. Have that friend over to help, and then do the likewise in return. There is nothing better than having accountability, whether that is the checkup of the friend, and make sure you ask a friend who is literally going to be checking up on you, who is going to check in on you and say, okay, show me that project, show me the progress, take a picture, I want to see, invite me over so I can take a look. Invite that friend to be the one who is your accountability partner, or the one who you share that experience with, because life is always better shared with friends. And if that friend is me, I would be incredibly honored. Did you know that decorating SOS calls can be used not just to make your home more beautiful, but to make it more functional too? It is my absolute joy. You heard me say it is giddy making when I can have a dream about organizing in my subconscious. So friend, it is an absolute joy when I can help you see the potential in your space, not only for the beautiful transformation you want, but the functional transformation that you want as well. Those two things, friend, go hand in hand. So booking a decorating SOS call can be used in order to address that root problem before we make the plan for beautifying. If you have not yet booked a call, I want you to. I have some spots available for the month of June, so you can book that at figandfarmathome.com/decorating-SOS. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Hey, real quick before you go, if you learned something new or found value in today's podcast, would you head over to iTunes to Fig and Farm at Home and leave a review and subscribe to the show? That would be awesome. And if you'd like to connect with my community of mamas who are learning to be intentional storytellers within their own homes, join us at bit.ly/design101 group. There's always more room at the table. See you soon.